Hey, what's going on everybody? Alex here with Freedom Mowers. I hope you all are doing well. Today we have a broke down $100 Craftsman that we're going to try to fix up. So let's jump right to it, see what's going on with this thing and what we've got to do to get it all fixed up. All right, and here's what we've got. This is a 2007 LTS 2000. So I guess it's a Lawn Tractor Series 2000. 42-inch cut, hydrostatic transmission. It did have okay blades on it, some mulching blades. Looks like the original spindle on this side. The other side looks like it has a new spindle. This did have a bagger system on it, but it was not the correct one. They had it all cobbled together, and this spindle on this side looked brand new. Now this was a trade-in. I gave him $100 off from I believe it was a Husqvarna that he bought, and that's pretty much all I remember, other than he started it up, or I cranked it up with a jump box and it was running like trash. Pulled it off the trailer and it's basically been sitting since. So, and that was months ago. I don't expect it to run, but we'll give it a shot and see what happens. 20 horse single intake on it. Seat is in not the best of shape, but it's not the worst either. Overall, complete machine. The toe on the front is all out of whack like they normally are. Earlier, this tire and that tire were both flat. I aired them up to pull it over here, and that one went down already. But overall, should be a decent machine. At least it's hydrostatic. I should have a bagger for it, and should be able to get this thing cleaned up and make a nice machine for somebody. So let's pull it in the shop. All right, let's get to the basics on here. Now I am taking a break away from that walk behind mower that I had, that I was trying to do an engine swap on, because to be honest, that thing is driving me nuts, and I don't know if I'm going to be able to get that thing fixed or not. Kind of going to see if I can come across another Kawasaki to put on it. Alright, so this filter is totally packed. If you guys have been around this channel, you've seen much worse than that. And there is almost no oil in here. That's great. Off to a good start. Show you guys on the stick. So we're like an inch away from the add line, so there is barely anything in here. Tank is empty. So I guess what we'll do right off the bat, I'll just go ahead, throw some oil in here real quick. We'll put a little bit of fuel in it, hook the jumper pack up, see what happens. Jumper pack is hooked. Oh, this throttle is almost seized. All right. Make sure you guys can see here. Here we go. So we're not running off choke. Well, it's definitely a runner, running about it the way it was when it came here. All right, just a little rough, And I was trying to just work with the choke manually by hand over there, but it definitely sounds like there is some knocking going on in that bottom end. Maybe we'll pull this outside since it's a bit smoky, and I'll see if I can get you guys to hear what I'm hearing, but definitely sounds like some rod knock, which is kind of not surprising seeing as how little oil was in here. Alright, let's see what this thing sounds like outside. Now, to me, some of these intakes, they always kind of have a little bit of noise at a really low idle, and I'm trying to just manipulate the choke so that we can get the idle down and listen to the engine. Come on. Yeah, see, I can't tell, and I can't really keep it running long enough either to even be able to test everything else out. So, alright, it is the next day. I did actually put another carb on here, made sure the fuel system was clean, and I ran this engine for a bit. It still definitely had some kind of a knock in the bottom end, and as I was looking at it, you know, where all this dust had been collecting was right between the cylinder head and the block. So I believe we have an external head gasket leak on here, and possibly an internal leak causing pressure on the crankcase, because I was getting some smoke out of the dipstick tube. I'll insert a clip of the smoke that this engine was putting out. Also pulled out the dipstick, and we've got quite a bit of some blow-by coming out. I mean, I know sometimes they have a little bit, but when I opened it the first time after running it for a bit, had quite a bit of some smoke coming out. But at this point, I don't really feel comfortable trying to use this engine or trying to go ahead and keep putting more work into it and try to sell somebody a decent machine and them have problems. So I'm gonna grab that 17.5 single intake from out back, and we'll get everything prepped. I'll show you guys the swap, and then hopefully from there we can get going with this, make sure the trans works, check out the deck, all the other fun stuff. So let's get to it. All right, here it is, our 17.5 intake, silver edition. So the other one was the gold edition. I guess we're downgrading in precious metals, but hopefully upgrading in healthy engine. But we'll check everything over on that. But we'll jump right to it. We'll start on this side of the engine. I'll show you guys everything needs to come off the other side, and we'll go underneath and get this pulled off. All right, so first thing, I'm gonna be keeping this fuel set up because I changed this out yesterday, put a new fuel filter on here and a new fuel line going from the filter to the carb. So we'll get this all tucked off to the side for now. And then we need to disconnect our throttle here. This just goes to the dash. So loosen that up. There's a Z-bend on it, and that should be everything on this side. We'll get this loosened up, 7/16 nut. Take that wire loose. Then we've got our engine harness. Sometimes these like to come off, and sometimes they're pretty difficult. Alright, that one came off. So at this point, we're pretty much all set to lift this up. We've got to pull the crankshaft bolt, the double stack pulley, and then we just have 4 engine mounting bolts to take out. Alright, so underneath, I'm just going to go ahead and drop off the deck belt, just get it out from the hangers. I do need to push down the parking brake, which will take tension off from our drive belt. And then this is a 5/8 on the crank. We'll see if our air impact will take it off. Come right out. And I'm not too concerned with getting this all the way out the way. I wasn't sure if it would clear this bar, But if it didn't, we could leave it up there, and when we take the engine off, we could leave the pulley right there. But drive belt came right off. And then I'm just going to go ahead and loosen up. There's just the 4 bolts here on the bottom, 9/16 more than likely. And then we'll drop this down. I'll show you guys pulling it off. All right, 4 bolts came out the bottom, and let me tell you, they did not want to come off. I honestly thought 2 of them were going to snap. Just got caught up on that wiring harness. And that's all she wrote right there. So now, what I'm gonna do, our other muffler should, with the routing that it is, it should fit right in here, so we can take this one out. I believe we've just got 2 1/2" and probably 2 9/16 to take this muffler out real quick. Alright, muffler guard is out. So we should be all good right there. Alright, and with that pulled off, we're going to go ahead and get the engine mounting plate all wiped down. I'm going to just bring it outside, wipe it down. I'm going to get the engine on here, reverse order what you guys saw with the other engine, taking it off. We'll see if it'll crank over, see how everything looks. We'll check the oil in it, and then more than likely we'll be doing the fuel system or the carb swap on that one. And then we can finally, hopefully, start testing everything out on here. Alright, and we are fully mounted up. Starter, harness is all hooked up. So I ended up having to put the exhaust on from the other engine. I thought that that curve was going to be close enough, but it wasn't. It just wouldn't fit through there and route correctly. So we're going to run that one, and didn't hook up the fuel because this carb is just destroyed on here. The choke was pretty much stuck. I was trying to mess with that for a minute, trying to get the throttle cable lined up, but everything looks good. Everything on the bottom side is fully tightened up. Now we can go ahead and check this oil on here. It's a good sign it wasn't at the bottom of the stick. So it's just a little bit above the minimum line, and it doesn't look too bad. I mean, it's dark, but not like that other one was. Now, I did already try to see if the air filter cover will come off, and this particular style, these ones really like to seize up. So I'm going to put a little bit of penetrating spray on here. I'll show you guys. I'm going to take the Dremel. I'm going to make a notch across the top of that stud, and then that way I can get a flathead screwdriver onto the center of this, and then we should be able to get those clamps loose. Alright, tried to cut and slot these. I cannot get this thing off, save my life. I'm starting to break the cover on here. So I think what I'm going to end up doing is just taking the upper shroud, these 4 bolts, and then I'm going to have to take the 2 7/16 out on the intake manifold, and basically then the whole shroud will lift up with that intake manifold. And what we can do is take the other intake manifold and the other cover and just swap everything over. And we should be able to clear everything. But yeah, those bolts, they go all the way through the bottom. There's like no good way to get to this. I don't think I've ever tested this engine because if I couldn't get the air box off, there's no way for me to get any spray in here. Yeah, let's see if our starter works first. All right, we are good there. Hit it with a little fluid. Oh yeah, throttle's stuck for sure. All right, yeah, you guys could hear that. It was already trying to over rev. Governor was stuck. All right, we are running at least. So let me get basically everything kind of cleaned up here, and then I'll show you guys getting this carb swapped. All right, went ahead and got the carb pulled off the other engine, and if you guys know or watch my channel, you know that I ordered the Hipa carbs. These are aftermarket. This was like 15 bucks for this kit, which came with the carb fuel line, a spark plug, fuel filter, gasket, and the clamps for everything. So all in one kit, minus the air filter or the oil filter. Sometimes they have those as well. But yeah, these kits work great. We're gonna try plug and play with this. I've already done the fuel system on this side yesterday, but I'll show you guys exactly how that goes on. And if you guys are interested, I'll make sure to put everything in the description below so that you guys can order for your riding mower or any of your outdoor power equipment. They have a ton of stuff. So on the intake manifold here, on the other one, it's just 2 7/16 nuts on the outside, and then the breather hose right here that slips off. And then we have 2 5/16 studs right here that need to come off, and also unplug our anti-backfire valve. So we've got that. Take our studs out. And then from here, we're gonna just move this choke lever out the way. It was in our outside hole and the hook is upright. Spin this around. Start to tilt it towards the engine because it's just a little hook basically. Get that out. Be careful with your governor assist spring right here. That just goes in that other small little hole, and that's all it is to taking that out. We'll just make sure that our area is nice and clean up against the plastic housing. From here, we'll go ahead and get our gasket in place. Put our studs right back in. We'll just go ahead and get them right on the gasket, and we'll do it all at one time. All right, just make sure your gasket is good. We'll go ahead and hook up the spring first. Come on. Get our hook in there. All right, get that spun around. Put our choke lever back in. Put that back in its slot. And then we can run these in by hand. I personally like to just use a little 1/4 inch ratchet to tighten these up, because the gasket is going to do the sealing for you, and you don't want to over crank on these, crack this plastic manifold on there. So I'll just go back and forth and snug these up evenly, and that should be good right there. Anti-backfire. Actually heard the key on when I plugged it in. Turn our key. Make sure that the valve is working, and it is. So now, see if we can move our throttle. I'm still gonna need to adjust that a little bit. Let me see here. I was trying to adjust it earlier and it's a little bit off. I'm gonna just bring it in a little bit there and see what this does. So that's full throttle, and then that's full choke. And that is going all the way in, so I think we're good there. I am gonna spray a little lube on the throttle and the governor linkages here, because all of this stuff is super stiff. And I will make sure to check the clearances on this particular, on the choke lever, because sometimes with those the air box on the bottom side, it could catch. You also want to make sure that, you know, it's not going to catch on the inside of your tube. Just make sure that everything is moving like it should, and we should be good there. At this point, what I can go ahead and do is hook up our fuel, which we should have enough in that tank. Yeah, we've got enough in the tank. Make sure we've got everything snugged on. Alright, so I did put a good used battery in here. We're gonna go ahead and just see what this does right out the box, right in front of you guys. Sounded great. I do want to try to adjust the idle a little bit on here, just to make sure. We'll see if we need choke this time. No choke on it. Alright, I'm going to pull this back outside for about 5 minutes of runtime, just to make sure we don't have any smoke or anything going on with head gasket or anything internal, and then we can finally start testing everything out. Alright, well, the GoPro stopped working on me the other day, ran out of battery. I did run this for about 5 minutes and no smoke, nothing going on. It was running great, so I did want to show you guys. I was actually trying to fit up the other shroud on here, and the problem that I'm running into is here on the bottom, on this bottom right hand corner, it's hitting on this metal guard here, and without pulling the flywheel to get to the bolts and everything, I don't feel like cutting the shroud off. You guys saw originally on this cover we couldn't get the bolts out. What I ended up having to do was come from the underside where those bolts went through, and I drilled them out. I took those studs from the other cover, I pushed those through, and I did go ahead and test to make sure everything is good to go. So I'm just going to button that cover up. This is the filter for that size cover, and then the one we had for basically like the 20 horse cover is this other filter. So they're a little bit different, same shape, one's just a little bit longer. But that's pretty much all there is to it. I'm just going to go ahead, get all this buttoned up, bolted on, and then we're going to see if we can get this thing moving and cutting. We're going to go ahead, give this thing a cold start. I have a nice wet seat to sit on. We'll engage our hydro on here. All right, see how it does. It's been 2 days since I cranked this. moving. Trans sounds nice and quiet though. I don't hear any noise at all. We'll go out here and see if we can't get these blades to kick on. Alright, well it is running, driving, and cutting. We'll get this deck dropped down. We'll check everything over, make sure it's all good to go. Probably throw a little coat of paint on that. Sharpen and balance the blades. We've still got some front end alignment stuff to do. Transmission was super smooth on here. Steering was still nice on it. We'll get all that greased up, the front end. And then with the alignment, get some front tires to hold air because this one keeps leaking down, and we've got our racing slick on this side. But overall, other than that, I think a seat cover, good cleaning, and we should be in pretty good shape. So I'll get all set up to drop this mowing deck, and we'll keep on trucking forward. All right, we're gonna get that mowing deck pulled out from underneath. So on this particular one, we have the mount here with a clip. There is one right in the center. We have our front mount with a clip. We need to take the engagement cable out. And then on the other side, we have the one in the middle and one in the rear. And other than just getting the belt off that pulley, we should be all set. All right, that took me about 3 to 4 minutes to get that all loose. So we'll get this pulled out now. Show you guys the overall condition. Honestly, this looks really good other than just some little bit of surface rust and some paint peel. It does look like this brake right here has been replaced. So we have one new spindle that has the greasable zert on it, one new brake, and our belt definitely has a couple of chunks out from it, so we're gonna have to grab a new belt. I'll have to see what size this one is, but maybe we can get this one at Tractor Supply. But overall, the engagement feels fine. So we can check our cable too and make sure that's moving nice and smooth. But all the belt keepers are here. Everything looks good, so we'll flip this up. And I think we can get away with, you know, just sharpening these blades up. They had the deck engaged. Everything sounded smooth on here. So probably just get all this cleaned up on the underside. I'll pop these blades off. We'll get those sharpened and balanced. I'm gonna go ahead, just get this pressure washed off. And then I'm gonna get the mower pulled in the shop. I'll show you guys fixing that front end alignment, and we'll go from there. And on our front end here, you guys can see this thing is basically kicked out either way. I did just try to line it up to where they're both about evenly kicked out, if that makes sense. That way we can adjust them and bring them in towards the center. Now on these, they're pretty easy to adjust. As far as any kind of adjustment on the rods, there is none, but a lot of times what happens is these kind of just get through a lot of abuse and wear and tear, and this part of the steering knuckle ends up getting bent or warped. And I'm going to take an adjustable, go right over top of this bar right here, and because we need this to come inward, we're basically going to bend this down a little bit, which is going to pull this rod forward and bring this tire in. So I'll show you guys on this one, and then we'll just try to get everything all evened up. All right, we're off the ground just a couple of inches here. I'm just going to tighten this down, and then from here we're just going to go ahead and bend that down a little bit, and that already brought that in a bit. And then I'm just going to be going back and forth on these until I get it even. So I think when I did that, it drew this tire straight. So we'll go ahead, kick that over to the side. We'll do the same thing on this one. And it's pretty quick to get this done. So let me straighten up this tire as close as I can with the rear. That honestly looks pretty good right there. And this side is just a little bit out still, so I'm gonna make one more adjustment. I'll set it down on the ground, and then we'll see what that looks like from there. And once I get all the way done with this, I'll go ahead and recenter up the steering wheel. That way that looks good. And we are sitting pretty good. So now what we'll do is we'll just go ahead and pop off this upper cover here, probably a 1/2 inch. We'll get that loosened up. All this will pop up, and then we can just shift the steering wheel over. Well, that bolt wasn't even tight on there at all. So take that, come right up. All right, right there, I think we should be good. Just need to lift it up, adjust, put our bolt back in. We'll make sure it's actually tight this time. Much better. Snap our cover. All right, alignment is done. Steering wheel is straight. And while we're finishing up this front end, I'm gonna go ahead and grease up the cert fittings on here. All right, both cert fittings on the front are greased up, and we are buttery smooth here. Alignment looks good. So what I'll do, I'm gonna drop it down off the jack. I'm gonna get it up on the other mower lift, and then we'll look underneath and see how this drive belt looks. And then here on the underside, I didn't hear anything at all with our test drive as far as anything with the pulleys. And this one's nice and flat, no spots where it burned through or anything like that. It's nice and smooth. This pulley's nice and smooth here. And I can see no damage on this rear pulley. All the bearings feel good on here. And then as far as our hydrostatic fan, we are all good there, no missing fins. So as far as the bottom side, I say we're all set with that. We'll get back to that mowing deck. All right, just finished pressure washing the underside here, and everything looks good. Got the grass and debris from the bottom, everything here from the top. So this is just gonna go ahead and dry, and then I'll give this a scuff sand. I'll show you guys that. I'm gonna get the mower pulled over here now, probably time lapse that, hit it with its first pressure wash, and we'll go from there. All right, and after that pressure wash and a little hand wash, this did clean up pretty good. Like I said, I'm still going to throw that seat cover on here. I've got the spark plug that came in our kit to go in here, and I'm going to give this thing an oil change with some straight weight 30. Now I'm just going to probably do that off camera because there's not a whole lot to a plug change and an oil change, and I've got quite a bit of some detailing to do on that. But on to the mowing deck here, I'm going to go ahead and pull off the chute. Should be 2 1/2-inch nuts on here, and then they're just carriage bolts. Discharge chute on here. I'm going to work on taking off the rest of the tape on here, and probably just use some isopropyl alcohol to get the rest of that gumminess off. But I'm going to go ahead, scrub this whole thing down. I've just got some 220 here just to give everything a nice scrub. I've got some Rust-Oleum satin black here, which should look pretty good. I'm really not worried about perfection or masking this off, so I'm going to go ahead, get this scuffed down. I'll show you guys once it's scuffed, and then I'll probably do 2 coats of the satin and also get the blades sharpened and balanced. And here's the mower deck after 2 coats of the satin black. It looks pretty good. Obviously there's some pitting and stuff like that, but we do have it covered at least now, and should be all set. I do have the blades sharpened and balanced, so I'll be putting those on, and I'm going to be picking up a belt from this for Tractor Supply, which is going to be a 1/2-inch by 101. Now onto the mower, I did get the oil change and the plug done. I did put some Fix-A-Flat in this front tire, and that has been holding for a day. And then here on the other side that we had that racing slick, I had another mower out in the back that had the same color of that gray wheel. This did have a tube in it, so I went ahead and just swapped that out. So at this point, the only thing left really need to do to double check is just make sure our charging system works. All right, and then just running this, pulling into the shop, we're sitting at 1269 on our battery. Now the only thing that this alternator needs to power basically is the anti-backfire solenoid and the headlights on it. So we should only really be charging probably around right around 13 volts because we have manual PTO. So we should be plenty good with that. Other than that, I'm gonna go ahead, like I said, just get this thing basically fully detailed, ready to go. I'm gonna end up getting the mower deck put back on here. You guys saw how all that came off, and I'm gonna see if I can find that complete bagger system, and we'll give this thing a final shakedown. All right, and here it is, our finished LTS 2000. I did go ahead and get a belt from Tractor Supply, like I said. You guys saw how that came off. It was 1/2-inch by 101. Everything on here turned out good. You guys know we had some tire issues in the front to fix, alignment. We ended up swapping out the engine on here. We've got our new Hipa carburetor, air filter. I had a good one for that. Fuel system all cleaned, new oil, new fuel filter. Sharpened and balanced the blades on here, repainted that deck, and I did throw on a bagger system. This is a 2-bin hard bag setup, and there is one thing I do need to repair on it, but just for time purposes I'm gonna wait. So the sealing ring on here keeps coming off from the actual box, so I'm gonna put some adhesive on there and get that all nice before this thing goes up for sale. Yeah, so that was pretty much everything we had on here. It is running and driving, cutting great. I did test it a little bit, and so we'll give this thing a demo. I'll get on here, take you guys for a ride along, and then we'll do a few test passes and get this thing wrapped up. And if you guys do like this kind of content, maybe think about hitting that subscribe. The channel is growing and I greatly appreciate it. See what it'll do. If we got anything just on that. Oh yeah, we're already picking up leaves. I've got it set pretty high because I don't want to scalp the yard right now. The grass has already stopped growing. But I'll get you guys set up, show you a little more. Alright, and as always, I really appreciate you guys stopping by and checking out the channel. I'm not sure what I'm going to list this for yet. I'm thinking with the bagger, I'm going to try for $550 and maybe $450 without the bag. We're pretty much at the end of the season here and mower sales are depleted, but since this has the bagger, that's kind of what I was hoping for, and some mulching blades that someone was looking for a bagging setup, and they can mulch their leaves this fall and have something ready for springtime. We got this thing turned around and should be a nice solid machine, and hopefully you guys enjoyed. So on that note, let freedom ring, let those small engines sing. I'll see you all in the next one.